For 17 years, she smiled, cooked, and raised her son like any other mother. But beneath that smile lived a secret. One so heavy, it had buried not just her past, but her first child. And when her son began asking questions, the truth clawed its way to the surface, one dream at a time. The morning didn't arrive the way it should. No birds, no breeze, just a strange stillness hanging over Umozala, like the sky itself was holding its breath. The village, usually alive with pounding footsteps and firewood smoke, was frozen. Something was being buried. Not everyone knew what or who, but they came anyway. Elders, mothers, children, drawn by silence. A small wooden box lay at the edge of the clearing. No name was written, no age spoken. No one asked. Even the drummers, those who beat their rhythms for births, for deaths, and weddings, stood with their hands still. And Nneka, she stood apart, her wrapper dark, her face unreadable. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just stared at the earth, like she knew what it would swallow. Ezinna leaned in to whisper, "She's not mourning, she's remembering." Because only Nneka knew what had been laid in that ground. Not a child, not a body, but a truth she'd carried for 17 long years. And as the soil fell, so did the last echo of a secret too heavy for words. In Umozala, silence was a language, and Nneka spoke it fluently. She no longer joined the women at the stream. She came alone, always before sunrise, fetching water with swift movements and avoiding every eye. But it wasn't her absence that unsettled people. It was her presence. Her eyes, they didn't look like those of a grieving mother. They looked like wells, deep, dark, and still, hiding things that should not be touched. Mama Chizoba was the first to say it out loud. That woman carries something in her eyes, something that shouldn't belong to the living. Every time someone mentioned the burial, Nneka's gaze fluttered just for a second, then settled back into that haunting calm. She never argued, never cried, but the air around her changed. Children stopped running past her compound. Women lowered their voices when she approached. Even the goats turned restless when she walked by. They said she had made a pact, that she had looked into the eyes of something the rest of them had learned to avoid. But only Ezinna seemed to understand. He told Reverend Damien, "That woman is not cursed." Then he whispered, "She's carrying a memory that still breathes." From a young age, Obinna, Nneka's son, was different. While other boys chased crickets and played drafts under mango trees, Obinna asked questions. Too many questions. Why don't we speak of my father? Why did you cry the night of the new moon? Why does Ezinna call me the reminder? He asked, not to provoke, but to understand. There was something in him that burned for truth. But in Umozala, truth was not always welcome. Nneka always answered gently but firmly. Your father went far away, or some things are better left where the spirit buried them. Obinna did believe in that kind of burial. One day, he followed the path near the river where Nneka forbade him to go. He found nothing but a broken wooden stool and ashes. But that night, Nneka screamed in her sleep. The first time Obinna ever saw her break. He was 15 when he told Ezinna, "My mother is afraid of something she can't name." Ezinna looked at him. Old eyes, weary. Be careful. Boy, not every truth is yours to own. But Obinna didn't stop digging. He didn't know questions, once asked, become doors. And some doors are better left sealed. Obinna once asked why his mother never wore short sleeves. Because the sun is cruel, she said, smiling softly, but he had seen the scar. It wasn't the kind you get from farm work or cooking fire. This one carved like a crescent, just above her shoulder blade. It looks intentional. He asked her again when he turned 16. She paused that time. Some wounds are better forgotten, she said, but Obinna couldn't forget. He asked Mama Chizoba, the oldest woman in their quarter. She coughed and turned away. That's not a question a boy should ask. You want your tongue to twist in your sleep? But curiosity is a hunger, and Obinna was starving. That night, Obinna sat outside under the kola tree, his chest heavy, his eyes on the moon. He had never seen his mother as weak. But suddenly, he realized scars don't just mark pain, they hide choices. Reverend Damian only came to Umuozala when the air was thick with unrest. That day, he arrived without warning. No choir, no procession, just a man of clothes gripping his Bible like a sword. He went straight to Nneka's compound. They sat beneath the old Udala tree. No one heard what was said, but young Ikiru claimed she saw Nneka crying afterwards for the first time in years. Later that day, the priest visited Ezinna. His voice was low, urgent. There is something here that must be cleansed, he said. But it will not go quietly. Ezinna looked away. We buried the wrong thing 17 years ago. By evening, thunder rolled across the sky, loud but with no rain. The goats wouldn't stop crying. The children refused to play outside. The air itself felt charged, like it knew something was unraveling. That night, Obinna saw his mother pacing, her footsteps soft but desperate, like someone counting memories instead of steps. She burned something in the heart, scraps of an old wrapper, part of a letter, and a small unrecognizable item. Obinna caught the scent, bitter like regret. Mama, what are you afraid of? He asked. She paused by the fire. A story, she said. One I tried to end, but stories don't die quietly. It was Obinna who found it, folded neatly under the old mat in Nneka's room, wrapped in nylon, protected like a sacred relic. The paper had brown with age, but the ink remained sharp. No name, no greeting, just words. What we did that night cannot remain hidden forever. One day, someone will dig, and when they do, May God forgive us both. Obinna's hands trembled. He waited till dusk before confronting his mother. He expected anger, shouting, maybe even a slap. But Nneka only looked at him and said nothing. She walked past him, her eyes dry, sat on the veranda and began peeling yam slowly, as if silence could erase what he now knew. Who wrote it, Mama? He asked. She didn't answer. Was it about me? Still nothing. But the knife slipped, her finger bled, and she didn't flinch. The letter was nameless, but the silence screamed the name loud and clear. Obinna kept it in his pocket for days, like a map with no landmarks. What had they done? And why was his name never mentioned, even once? Some letters speak louder for what they don't say. Harmattan arrived early that year, dry, dusty, and full of whispers. The wind carried voices, half-spoken prayers, warnings that clung to the thatched roofs. Children say they had a baby crying in the bush, though none had gone missing. Goat refused to eat. Palm fronds rustled with no breeze. Obinna heard the voices too. One night, he woke to find Nneka outside, her head tilted as though listening. Her wrapper clung to her body and her lips moved soundlessly. Mama, he called. She turned sharply. Go inside. But who are you? I said go. He didn't sleep again that night. The next morning, he asked Ezinna about the voices. Ezinna sighed. There are spirits that come when secrets stay too long. They knock, and if you don't open, they enter through the walls. Obinna whispered. Are they knocking now? Ezinna didn't answer. He only looked toward the bush, and the wind howled again, like it wanted to remember something the living had tried to forget. A man came, wearing an old cap and carrying a walking stick that didn't match his age. Tall, with eyes too sharp to be casual. He asked for Ezinna, then for Nneka. No one knew his name. He called himself Odogu, but the elders whispered, "This one carries more than a name." Nneka saw him and froze. They didn't speak, just stared at each other like ghosts recognizing their own. Then she walked away. But that night, she didn't eat. Odogu stayed in the village for 3 days. He never smiled, never asked questions, just watched, especially Obinna. On the second night, Obinna found him sitting near the old Iroko tree. "You look like someone I knew," Odogu said softly. "Before fire took everything." Obinna was confused. Fire? Odogu smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Ask your mother." By morning, he was gone. No footprints, no farewell. But Nneka fell sick that day, feverish, shivering and whispering in her sleep. She kept repeating a name, and it wasn't Obinna's. 17 years ago, a fire swept through the outskirts of Umuozala. It was blamed on lightning, but some elders swore there was no storm that night. A small hut was burned completely. A man lived there, a recluse. No one saw his body, just ashes and a scorched pendant. That man had once courted Nneka. Ezinna remembered. So did Mama Chizoba, but nobody spoke until now. Obinna found the pendant among Nneka's old belongings, hidden in a calabash, wrapped in the clothes. The same symbol engraved on the letter he'd found. He asked, "Mama, who did you lose in that fire?" She finally met his eyes. "Someone I should have protected, but chose to forget." Obinna's heart pounded. Was he my father? She looked away. That night, she stood by the earth and whispered into the flames, "Forgive me." The fire crackled louder than usual, like it understood the language of guilt. And Obinna realized, sometimes it's not death that haunts a village, but the silence that followed it. The dreams began with water. Obinna stood knee-deep in a red river. A woman's voice called his name, each time louder, desperate, then fire. A screaming child. A man's voice shouting, Nneka weeping. He woke drenched in sweat, the smell of smoke clinging to his skin. The next night, he saw the same dream, but clearer. The child was him. The man, his face hidden, held him, then let him go. Obinna screamed himself awake. Nneka came running, but when she touched his forehead, he jerked away. Who was he? The man in the fire. She turned cold. Stop asking. Let the past rot where it belongs. No, not when it's inside me. The dreams continued, each one more vivid, until one night, he woke with a word on his tongue he didn't understand. Obiora. He asked Ezinna the next morning. The old man stiffened. That was your father's name, but no one has spoken it in 17 years. Obinna's legs failed him because truth wasn't just bleeding through dreams. It was about to flood everything. The river beyond Umozala flowed softly like a lullaby. But there was a place along its bend that no one farmed. No one fetched water there, not since the fire. Obinna went there alone. The ground was sunken, uneven, like something had been buried in haste. He dug with his bare hands, not far, just shallow enough, and there he found bones, small, fragile, charred. Beside them, a baby's bracelet, beads, strung on dry snail. Obinna's breath caught. He ran home, threw the bracelet at Nneka's feet. What is this? She stared at it for a long time, then looked at him. Your brother. Obinna staggered. Brother? She nodded. He lived only a day, burned in fire, buried in fear. Why didn't you tell me? Her voice broke. Because if I did, you would ask who the father was, and I could not survive telling you that truth. Obinna backed away, his hands shaking, because suddenly everything about her silence made sense. And still, nothing made sense. 3 days after the river grave, Obinna vanished. His bed remained untouched, his slippers at the door, but he was gone. Nneka collapsed when she found that the spirit had taken him. She cried. The villagers searched, Men with lanterns combed the forest. Women wailed by the stream. Reverend Damien led prayers, but no one found him. Mama Chizoba whispered, "Sometimes the land demands a replacement." Ezinna stayed quiet, but at dusk, he visited an old hut alone. There, an engraved red clay was Obinna's name. Ezinna shivered. He went looking for what should not be found. But Nneka knew better. She sat alone that night, whispering his name into the wind. Obinna! 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 At midnight, she heard his voice. Barely a whisper. Mama! She ran outside, but the wind swallowed it before she could follow. For weeks, the village felt wrong. The birds stopped singing. The morning cockcrow delayed. The air was heavy, like smoke without fire. Nneka stopped eating. Each morning, she sat outside, face to the road, waiting, listening. The neighbors murmured, "She's not waiting for her son. She's waiting for her punishment." Even Reverend Damien stopped visiting. His prayers had turned to whispers. Nneka refused water, refused food, only chewed cola and stared. Ezinna came to her on the 7th day. "You must tell it," he said, "before the land curses your bones." She replied, "If I tell it, will I die?" He nodded. "Yes, but if you don't, others will." She stood finally, legs shaking. "Bring the elders," she said. "Bring the ones who were there that night." And the birds kept quiet because they too wanted to hear. Under the old Udala tree, before the elders and villagers, Nneka began her story. I was 17 the night the fire came. It wasn't lightning, it was rage. She spoke of Obiora, Obinna's father, a man the village rejected, a man who loved her fiercely, a man she hid. We had a child, but the village would not have him. They said that Obiora was cursed and rejected. She paused. Her voice cracked. The child cried through the night, and when I woke up, there was smoke. Obiora was gone, and the baby, he was silent. She buried him herself, alone, with shaking hands, and a heart too broken to break again. Ezinna lowered his head, and the letter. It was Obiora's last. He knew they would come for him. And Obinna, Reverend Damien asked gently. She looked up. He is Obiora's son too, but I raised him in silence because I was afraid he'd burn too. A gap swept the crowd, but Nneka's eyes were clear. For the first time in 17 years, she had emptied herself, and the wind that blew after was soft, almost forgiving. The elders dismissed the gathering, but Ezinna did not move. He remained beneath the Udala tree, head bowed, heart heavy. That night, he came to Nneka's compound alone. I I too have something to say," he said, his voice trembling. He sat on the stool where Obinna once tied his shoelace. "I was there the night they burned Obiara's hut. I did not light the flame, but I did not stop it. I was afraid that if I defended him, they would say I was like him, a man who questions the customs." Nneka's face was blank. Ezinna looked up. "I have carried that shame like a stone in my chest. Watching your son grow was punishment enough. He had Obiara's fire, but your silence, your strength, was what kept him alive." She didn't speak, just wept. Quiet, shaking tears. Ezinna placed a pouch of kola nuts on the ground. "This is my peace offering for what we took, for what I failed to protect." And when he left, Nneka buried the kola nuts beneath the udala tree, right where the truth had finally taken root. Word spread. Nneka had spoken. Ezinna had confessed. And now, the village must decide what to do. They gathered in the meeting hut. The air smelled of old wood, incense, and anticipation. Some elders said, "Let the past rest. She has suffered enough." Others argued, "A lie this deep cannot go unpunished." But Mama Chizoba, oldest of the women, stood with her walking stick and said, "Punishment? When she punished herself for 17 years, her sorrow has been heard." There was silence. Then Reverend Damian entered. She did what she did to protect a boy who never knew who he was. We must ask ourselves, are we judging her or ourselves? The elders looked at one another. At last, Ezinna raised his head. "Let it end here. Let this be our final silence." The elders agreed. And in that moment, the village exhaled for the first time in years. Obinna returned on the 9th day. He emerged from the forest, barefoot, dazed but alive. His eyes were not the same. They carried the weight of something. Sin, something endured. The villagers shouted in relief. Some wept, others backed away. He said little, but later that night, he told Nneka, "I saw him." She froze. In a dream or in truth, I don't know, but I saw him. Obiora. He didn't speak, just stood near the river, watching. Nneka's lips trembled. Did he look angry? No, Obinna said. He looked at peace and said, "He forgive you." And Nneka broke. Obiora was the weight of a name unspoken, a father unknown, a grief unfinished. And now it had lifted. 17 years of silence, 17 years of hiding, hurt, waiting. Now the village had changed. Children played near the river again. The birds had returned. And Obinna, he became a teacher, taught the village children not just numbers and words, but stories, real stories, stories about truth, about silence, about choosing courage. Sometimes he paused beside the grave near the river left flowers, left silence. And Nneka, she aged gently, wrinkles across her face. She laughed small now, cooked jollof for children who came to listen to her tales. But every New Year's Eve, she'd walk alone, she'd kneel and whisper Obiora's name. Not for guilt anymore, but for love. Because remembering sometimes is the last part of healing. The drought had lasted 3 weeks. Farms cracked, wells dried. Even the clouds seemed to hover without weeping. But the day Nneka died, quietly, in her sleep, the skies darkened. Obinna sat beside her, holding her hands. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "You gave me life twice." The villagers gathered. They buried her beneath Udala tree, the same tree under which secrets broke and truth bloomed. And as the first shovel of red earth hit the coffin, thunder cracked. Rain poured. The children danced in it, and the birds sang without fear. Obinna stood in the rain, eyes closed. He felt it on his skin, not just water, but release. The truth had brought pain, but it had also brought peace. And in that moment, under a grey Igbo sky, the land forgave itself. Sometimes, silence feels safer than truth, but silence is heavy. It burns quietly until it destroys more than it protects. Nneka hid her pain, thinking she was serving her son. But secrets grow roots. They twist the truth, and sometimes they bury the very thing you are trying to protect. If there's something I've learned from this story, it's this: speak your truth before the earth speaks it for you. Let love guide you, not fear. Let honesty lead you, not shame. Because healing begins the moment we stop hiding. To anyone listening to this today, maybe it's time to forgive yourself, or maybe it's time to dig up a silence you buried long ago.